The Center for Educational Media and the College of Education at Middle Tennessee State University are proud to offer professional development to K-12 educators in Tennessee through our online video library. These videos are aligned with standards set by the Tennessee Department of Education. For more professional development videos, check out our website at www.mtsu.edu/CEM. Today, we have a great final session. Ms. Donna Neary she is the ENL coordinator.
Specialist.
ENL specialist in Hamilton County Schools. So Ms. Neary comes to us with quite an array of experiences in different states as well as in Tennessee. And so she'll bring a really great perspective on writing and how administrators can lead the people in your district, in your schools, into a culture of writing. So Ms. Neary, would you join us, please? And thank you for being here.
Thank you. So I'm very happy to be here talking about something that I'm very passionate about, and that's writing. As a teacher and also personally, I have found writing to be an outlet for me as a historian prior to my job as a teacher, and there's nothing more fulfilling to me than bringing writing into my classroom. So writing is focusing on student voice. It's student choice, and ultimately in an ENL classroom, it's belonging. I have found that writing has been a way for students to really connect, not only with their peers, but their new communities, with people who live in the community who look very different than they do, and also finding places where they can connect with people who are very much like they are and share the same language. And then we all come together in academic English. So thinking about championing Tennessee voices, very specifically, people who are directors and principals, people who are leading districts, people who are leading programs, can truly become champions for everyone in the school to become a writer. Just to get an idea of who is in the room, how many school principals are here today? How many district personnel that work with ENL? A lot of folks in that category. So we have a lot of expertise in the room and people at every level of a school and a district who can empower and impact writing in a district. I could not start this presentation about writing without thinking about Dolly, and she's coming up in other presentations, I know. But Dolly Parton is Tennessee's storyteller. She's storyteller for the world. And when I read this quote, it resonated so strongly with me. She talks about being so full of ideas. There's no shortage of ideas in her mind. And she says, I write all the time. In her whole life, she's always had ideas. She's never had any kind of writer's block. Wow, that's amazing. She is amazing. And I hear everything in music. She's never said, I'm never gonna be able to write again. That's what we want to create for our students. I would love for all of them to be Dolly Parton and have that level of career and satisfaction in their life. But writing is truly a skill that will bring satisfaction in their life as they go into their careers, as they go into higher education, as they're in K-12 education. So it's a way for us to support students every day in their classrooms, but as they go forward in their careers. So I'm really asking all of us to think about how we can champion writers. the champion, the person who just enthusiastically supports implementation of whatever the plan is. And my hope is that everybody will have a plan at your own school, and it'll be very unique. Writing is universal. As we know in Tennessee, district size varies. The number of E&L kids varies. The amount of resources. How many people are trained to work with English new learners. It varies across the district. But the universality is that we can all be champions, and whatever that looks like in your iteration in your community is the way you should put it forward to the teachers in your classroom and to those in your district. Tennessee students need to write. The English language arts guidelines that we look to for English new learners, writing is a critical component. We know that reading, writing, speaking, listening, and analyzing those facts are critically important to us. As learners, English new learners need to really process that and digest it in ways that are in a new language. When we focus on students, it's an ethical obligation to really provide whatever services they need. And writing is one of the things that will serve them throughout their life, and it directly intersects. When we read, we ask them to write. When they listen to something, we often ask them to write. When they're speaking, they have to prepare before. So writing is such an integral component that I'm focusing on all of you becoming champions for writers, but also promoting writing to the teachers in your building. So today we're really going to look at opportunities that you can design for teachers in your building and people in your district to support English new learners. But as we know, and any good strategy for English new learners serves students across the spectrum in all of our schools. So one of the reasons I'm here today is because teachers have routinely requested writing workshops through this collaborative. When I was sent the list of things to speak about, I was very honored to be nominated to speak. Writing. How do we get kids writing? What about writing strategies? How do we get core teachers to incorporate writing? So it was over and over and over again, the idea that writing is something that is needed across the school and certainly for English new learners. And so you're in a position, leaders in schools are in a position to bring this ethic to the classroom and to the schools that you work at. And that's the way I'm positioning this, that we can talk to teachers and teachers then will devise strategies for students. I'm also going to be presenting to teachers later in the fall with the direct strategies for writing. This conversation really is about how do we start talking to teachers about integrating and how do we get core content teachers to partner with E&L teachers to do the writing. So there's really 6 key points that I want to share with you today. So critically important, and this just seems to be such top of mind for administrators and people who are in district positions, is really the data, knowing what the data is for your school, for your district, and also for our state. Empowering instructional coaches, I cannot say enough about the instructional coaches that I've worked with and how intent they are on being a resource for the teachers in the classroom, but also for principals in buildings. And when we look at our district support instructional folks, the leads who are in E&L and other areas, they share information across the district. So the instructional leads really carry the message across the district. Critically, we want to activate teachers. So many teachers, when we say we're going to start something new or we're going to introduce something. When I became a teacher, when the principal or when somebody would announce, this is going to be a new initiative, at least one teacher would always say, wait 6 months, it'll go away. This won't last. We're doing new initiatives all the time. This won't last. This should last. Writing is a critical component of life. And so looking at ways to Activate Your Teachers includes impacting the master schedule. What might that look like for your school? Involving families and community is a sure way to get kids involved and interested in their writing, and incorporating that in all aspects of your school community. And looking at publicly voicing support, forward-facing reactions and comments and interactions and events around writing will be what promotes it and keeps it going forward, keeps it moving. So when you think about the sorts of testing that we do, I am a second career teacher. I started as a historian. I worked at historical societies and did historic preservation. I've written several things. I've written and published quite a bit. And writing was a way to communicate across time and space. And in the classroom, what I realize is that when we look at how kids are doing, we're looking at scores. We're looking at ways to quantify how a kid is doing. But in conversations with other teachers, we're looking at old data. When we look at the data that tells us how kids did, it's from the spring. It's from last year. Writing is today. Writing is a currency of today. You can talk about current events. You can track ENL's proficiency. And so when you look at data that is quantitative and you want to see what all the students have done across the state, that's a baseline. That works. But if you want to continue to build and grow your students, what I'm suggesting is that you promote with your teachers that you're constantly looking at their writing and you're partnering with other teachers across the building. So a cross-content consideration is the way that we've done it at our school. The instructional coaches have worked with the teachers to really decide what is it that we need to focus on. One of the things that we did was to start a coaching cycle. Coaching cycles can sometimes be viewed as a negative. Sometimes if a teacher needs a little help, or if there is something going on evaluatively that teachers need to build competency in, it'll be very top down. You need a coaching cycle. We'd like you to enter a coaching cycle. What I'm suggesting is that coaching cycles for writing, especially if you have teachers that are less confident, are a wonderful way to build skill sets. In our case, I went into our classroom. I was a high school teacher, and I moved to a middle school. And it's very different. High school kids and middle school kids are really different. I knew that, but I didn't know it as a teacher. I had never taught in a middle school before. And when I looked at the data, I looked at past assessments, the variety of assessments that are available to us. But when I looked at their scores for language assessment, it was glaringly obvious that students had top score on speaking. The proficiency level that I'm working with is from, on the former scale, 3 to 6 proficiency level. So students had top scores on speaking, top scores on listening, strong scores on reading, really low scores on writing. So these are kids who would be termed as long-term ELs from kindergarten to middle school, who have learned along with their peers from kindergarten and have done all the work that their friends are doing in the class. They come to ENL class, but when they take the assessment, their writing scores traditionally have kept them from exiting services. And so when looking at this, I thought, wow, there's got to be a way to identify how to support students writing, but also to understand what is their true proficiency. Because if someone has a score that doesn't reflect what I'm seeing in the classroom, how can I work with that student so they can achieve those scores? So we started a coaching cycle, And we began to look at tools and resources for enhancing writing. What we found once we started working is throughout the cycle, we worked together, we designed some tools and strategies, and then we took those to the teachers in the building to see how they would regard them for students across the building. What we found was that some teachers were really excited and really wanted to jump in and say, let's try something new. Usually those teachers, if you're a building leader or you're leading in your district, they'll email you, hey, I've got an idea. Could we try this? This sounds good to me. Those early adapters are looking for ways to increase the proficiency in their students. Other teachers are just as interested in the proficiency, but the early adapter teachers are looking for ways. They're conducting research. They're trying to find, how do we increase the scores? Is it possible to increase the scores? And so those teachers bring the ideas to you as the leader, or you realize that you can tap that person and they can become part of your team to build writing. We found that our principal was very excited about increasing writing across the school. And we also realized that when we started building in the E&L classroom and focusing on writing, a couple of things happened. The most exciting news is, I'll give away the end, 31% of my students achieved scores to exit services. We started this, we used their scores from the spring. We looked at the model that was available with the former assessment product, and we bookended those and we thought, okay, what do we want to happen in next spring? We did not predict other than the outcome of we would like a percentage of our students to exit. The thing we changed in the classroom was we directly focused on writing tools and strategies every single day. So we devised a quick write. You either wrote when you got there as a warm-up or you wrote when you left as an exit. We designed critically essential questions to the text. In my district, I'm in Hamilton County, we do use a curriculum. We have a curriculum that's designed. It's a national curriculum that's available and our school has adopted it. So I use a curriculum that is designed for English new learners in middle school. And we are encouraged to use that grade level text, but also to supplement with other things happening in the current events or other texts. We bring in texts from other classes. But we are focused on using that grade level text and using that curriculum because truly it acted as a measure for us. It was a real baseline. We knew what text all the students were reading. We knew if it was a grade level text, we knew that they were able to achieve that. We had certain groups of kids who are reading in different level text. So there's an A, a B, and a C. And so you determine which reading level your student is at, and then that group of students reads at the level that they can reach for. And so that was critically important that we had tools that we could use that were standard, that we understood what we were working with and how those texts were being regarded by the students. Some of the texts, most of the texts are not only English language arts. In this curriculum, there are every type of reading. So there's nonfiction, there's fiction, there's short story, there's scientific reading. There are not math. Math is not one of the topics in this curriculum. Social studies is featured. So across the curriculum, there are readings and texts that coordinate across with what else the students are doing in the school, but that was our baseline text. We used that to develop our tools. We also asked in our coaching cycle, how would other teachers use this? I'm one teacher, you're the instructional coach, we're working together. We like each other, we support each other, we like each other's ideas. But what questions would other teachers ask? Would they want to use the tools and resources that we're coming up with? Some of it was tech, some of it was pencil and paper. Some of it was how we did groupings and how we called on kids, how we divided groups of kids. So we tried many different ways to really shake up the classroom so students would stop, drop, and write. Okay, you've just gotten here, here's the prompt, here's 5 minutes, this is what I want you to write. We started a plan where students were required to write 10 5-paragraph essays before the end of the school year in one semester. High school, that's maybe kind of normal. I don't know if that's really something that a lot of E&L kids are doing, but we set incredibly high expectations and we built a system and a framework for them. And so the reason we kept assigning more and more is to normalize the amount of work. Our goal and our hope is that they're successful if they go on to higher education, and they're successful if they, whatever job they might do. And you don't get 6 weeks to write one essay. You write constantly, constantly, constantly. So these kids got used to writing. Early adapter teachers, and I consider myself in that category, or somebody who would bring it to the principal. We sometimes don't always understand, what do you mean you don't want to try something new? This is really exciting. This is going to be fun. Scaffolding avoidant educators in the sense of, is it going to be more work? I'm already doing these things. I'm the lead of my department. I'm in math. We have a lot to cover in standards. I'm not really sure that I can make that fit into what I'm doing. This is what I mean by avoidant. Not that teachers didn't want to partner or that teachers didn't want to help students learn how to write, but I've got many things to do in my category. You're the E&L teacher, she's the ELA teacher, you guys can support writing, we're good. What we talked about was the value as we know it in life. If you're in social studies, you're going to write a lot. Social studies is focused on big ideas, the past, history, analysis, taking bits and pieces of information and creating something that has meaning. If you're in science, you need to be able to describe the steps of something really clearly so the student can be successful, or so the person can clearly document evidence of what they've done. And so we focused on outcomes for students. We talked about how do we suggest an outcome that teachers can create and feel good about, but also feel that it's part of what they're doing. We don't want to make anybody do new work. It doesn't feel like it's new, but maybe it's just not what you've been doing in your area. So let's normalize working together and writing together. And so partnering teachers who wanted to sort of jump out and go for it with teachers who had critical questions about what was going on is a really strong way to make that work, because everybody feels supported. And you get a lot of fantastic questions. If somebody's not just like right off the bat ready to go, there are so many questions that they're asking about what's the value to us? How does this support this when we come to testing? We've got to prep kids for testing. How is this going to work when we have to do benchmarks, or when we're doing any of the big testing? How is this going to impact? What we saw is that TCAP scores were impacted by us focusing on writing for E&Ls. Students who were in that class, and it was a study group. We started with a study group. This year it's expanding out to the rest of the school. Students who were in the English New Language class were undaunted by writing. They didn't always like it. They weren't always thrilled. But what we heard was, I don't even know where to start. How do I begin this? How long does this have to be? Are you kidding me? 5 paragraphs? We built their muscle by supporting them and making it normal for them to write. And then when we talked to our other teachers at the school, we were able to show them product, the evidence of the students' work, and show them that in fact, students are capable, they're competent, they're interested, and they produced work that was quality and on point. So when we had the compelling questions, here's what we want you to write about. What was so important to the writing was the reading, the listening, the speaking before the writing. So we built an entire protocol. We read the grade level text. We talked about a compelling question. What are we going to pursue over a period of time? We put it in a modern context. So one of the books that we read, one of the texts that we read was about the Lost Boys of Sudan. This was in the unit that we were looking at. And that happened a long time ago. We forget that the children who are in middle school now have no living recollection of so many things that we feel so current, that feel so current to us. And so we talked about what would you feel like if, and then we pre-read the text. We provided them an opportunity to discuss it. We asked them to write questions. What if you met someone who had these life experiences? What would you want to know from that person? And so every aspect of the classroom was focused on making sure that the students had background knowledge, they felt secure, that they understood what the question was, they understood that this life experience was universal. In some cases, that life experience was very similar and familiar to their own life experience or that of their family, and that there was real value in digging in and trying to understand through all of those modalities, reading, writing, speaking, and listening. So we looked at building a system of support, and creating a team is critically important. So if you're leading the building, if you're leading your team, you need to have people who are working with you who can help make it happen, who can bring it to fruition. If I'm the E&L teacher and I'm supporting writing and I want everybody in the building to write, that's not a logical progression. But when you build a team and you have people who in every core content are involved and understand that there is value and information that they can share with their team, that's how you create sustainability. And that's what we're working on now. We're working to sustain a system so writing is normalized, people have an opportunity to try things out with their own core content, and we're seeing that there's some cross-curricular communication on writing as well. One of the things that is so critically important about the cross-curricular is that students can create some authentic engagement. One example for a school that I worked in Kentucky, we worked with English new language students who were also immigrant origin. Overwhelmingly, they were, most of the students were refugees who had come to Kentucky to start a new life with their families. And an English language arts teacher, the math teacher, I'm a social studies teacher in addition to being an E&L teacher. We were partnering and we were addressing cross-content. What do we need to do to make sure these children who were in high school build some background about United States history? The class we were in was United States history and social studies. In math, they were studying geometry. And in ELA, they were doing a writing assignment. And so the teachers, we all got together and talked. We all had English ESL training. We were all ESL teachers. It was a big district, big school. So we partnered together and devised lessons that folded one into the other. We were looking at the United States history, and biography was a component of the writing that the ELA teacher was focused on. And the math teacher was thinking, okay, United States history, Civil War was the unit we were in. And I'm thinking, all right, Civil War, United States history, math, and ELA. And we came to the conclusion that we could focus on Abraham Lincoln as the person for the biography. We were in Kentucky. I too am a Kentuckian. Abraham Lincoln is a son of Kentucky. The only president born in Kentucky. Illinois claims him. He was living there, but he was born in Kentucky. And his birthplace is in Kentucky. And the geometry teacher was thinking, okay, what can I do to create some sort of a connection? And our geometry teacher was also a National Guardsman in the Army, and so he started thinking about projectiles. How do we think about this? And so the students did a multifaceted plan that included writing as the focus point. They did math and created weapons of war and put them in an ancient context. He designed a catapult based on geometry. So they thought about how do you send a projectile through the air. In social studies, we looked at the timeline of the Civil War and really focused on the state of Kentucky and its involvement. And in English class, they wrote an essay about Abraham Lincoln. The culminating project for the students was to ask the question, how is Abraham Lincoln's life, does Abraham Lincoln's life resemble your life in any way? Do you have any commonality with Abraham Lincoln? And so here are students who came to us from around the world who are seeing themselves through the eyes of the Civil War and how Abraham Lincoln may have something in common with their life. They created projects, they had to do research and write, and they were invited by the National Park Service, Abraham Lincoln's birthplace, where they went and presented their work at the National Park. And so the multi-tiered project to do research in English, to write the essay in English, to write a report on the Civil War in United States history, to write about projectiles and to design a catapult and to write a description of how to build it, were all integrated across the content, and students learned how normal it is to combine everything. School is very siloed. That's the way it is. You go to algebra, you go to history, you go to wherever you go during the day. But what is possible in schools and as you champion writing across your school, have conversations about how to normalize connecting classes and making sure that writing is something every class is doing and that it's connected across the curriculum. One of the ways to do that is really to do the glows and grows. That's so important to talk about with your faculty where the successes are coming. So if you do normalize writing and you want students to project their writing, you have to be in teacher's classroom and read what kids are writing. If you want students to compete in contests, you have to make that available. You have to empower your teachers and the people in your districts. You have to bring to them the information that you have about what's happening in and around the world. And putting that face forward is critically important for students to understand how important writing is in their life. One of the things in Hamilton County is a profile of a graduate. Some counties are doing this, cities all over the United States are doing it. But focusing on aspects of the student are a way to really focus on the powerful growth students are having. One of the things that we focus on is being an effective communicator. And we take that very seriously at our school. And so putting that forward, students are being asked daily, write a thank you note. We're focusing on gratitude at our school. There are slips everywhere in the school. They can stop and get a piece of paper, or they can do it digitally, and they can praise a teacher, they can congratulate a student, they can talk about something that's meaningful to them. And so normalizing writing and communicating is an important part of making this just part of that nerve that they want to continue to do. Impacting the master schedule is something that, frankly, full disclosure, this seems beyond my comprehension. I am a classroom teacher. It is not my strength or understanding. When I see the magic of putting together a master schedule, it's amazing. If you are creating schedules, kudos. That to me is an incredible skill that I value every single day and every place I go. People who have that skill, thank you, remarkable. And one of the things that I do know about it is it's incredibly hard to change it. It's really tough to do something different. And we've heard some other things about that today. Impacting a master schedule, it's a master schedule. That's what the day looks like. That's what the week looks like. That's what the year looks like. But as the leader of a school or the leader of a district or the leader of a pod of people, think about how you could possibly change that and switch it a bit to give teachers time to work together. To me, that's critically important. So just say my team is in math. Math teachers constantly come to me and say, we do write, but we don't write as much as in ELA or ENL, but we'd like to know more of how to integrate that. Can you help us do that? Or would you be willing to work with us? Putting together a master schedule or modifying the master schedule, that would maybe preference, take a planning time, switch it up a little bit, and see if you could trade off. Maybe 1 week the math team gets extra plan, and the next week the other team gets extra plan. This is magic. This all sounds difficult, I know, but there's creative ways you could impact your schedule for 1 week, 1 day, one planning day, to just show that you are committed to and care about the writing. If you design opportunities to ideate, people will really get involved. So if you have a PD day, it's just part of the master schedule. You don't need to change anything. You're already going to have a PD day. Make it a writing day. The whole day is divided into aspects of how to support the teachers in your building, and make sure that they have a sense that it's important to you, it's important to your students, and critically that it impacts test scores, and it also impacts the lives of English new language learners who need that extra practice and who benefit greatly from the writing across the entire content. So one of the things that I've worked on at all the schools that I worked on is impacting writing through communication and connection with community groups. If you're not sure how to change things at your school, you can invite people to come in and help you. And this is what we've done at several schools that I've worked at. You can invite colleges and trade schools. They come all the time. They want to come all the time. And the question to ask is, what kind of writing do they need to know before they come to your school? And so they're prepared with very targeted discussions about that. How do you write a letter that'll get you into a college? How do you communicate to a professor if your work's going to be late? What sorts of documents do students need to create and prepare? So partners in the community will come in, and if you know the focus is going to be writing, consult local employers. Ask them to come in and focus on what sort of writing do you do in this line of work. If you work in a manufacturing company, or you're a welder, or you're a nurse, what kind of writing am I expected to do? To build that muscle for students, but also to encourage teachers to know really what it is that they need to be teaching kids. Partnering with organizations like museums has been an amazing way for students in my ENL classes to reach their potential in writing and mastering writing. Proficiency in writing is often a lower score. Reviewing scores for reading and writing, generally in the district that I work in, those are the two lowest scores for students who are English new learners. And what I'm saying is we can decide that we want to make sure as educators across the spectrum, as leaders in buildings, and as E&L teachers that no, we don't want to just say, I'm only going to do writing this time. We're really only going to focus here. We have to focus on all aspects of proficiency. But when we see data that indicates that students are lacking in a certain area, their proficiency is not what we imagine it would be, the proficiency is not where it needs to be for them to continue to succeed, it's completely legitimate to focus and choose something to concentrate on. What we did last year is we said we're going to focus on reading and writing. Certainly they're going to speak, they're going to listen, they're going to participate, they're going to do projects, they're going to be across the building. But how can we devise strategies so kids can build that writing and decide that that's an important component of what they did? It was also a very sort of emotional piece because kids were not always excited about writing. I think a lot of adults aren't always excited about writing. But when we showed them the strategies and said, you can promote yourself out of E&L, you can gain your proficiency and you can then have access to things that aren't available to you because you're in ESL class. And in some districts in our school, related arts happens when when E&L happens. They have an English language arts, a science, a math, then they have related arts. That's our service time. So if a student is in an English new language, they don't have homeroom. They have their related arts with other E&L kids during their homeroom. And then during related arts, when all their friends are in band and choir, etc., our students are getting their service time in E&L. And so it was very compelling for teachers to focus on the writing and the reading because we could elevate kids' expectations for themselves. They set high expectations for themselves, and as we said, 31% of the kids exited the services. So the important part for you to do for your teachers, for your district, with parents, with people who are critically involved in their students' education, is to voice your support. Include teacher writing in your faculty newsletter. Talk about how to promote writing into the community. Invite people in the district leadership. We have so many walkthroughs. I'm sure every district has many walkthroughs, but walkthroughs generally happen, lessons going on, and people come through and they see what we're doing and it's positive. But have a learn through. Look at your innovative teachers and see what they're doing and invite your district leadership or invite your people who are making decisions to come and watch a writing lesson, to come and partake in a writing lesson, to think about how they can encourage teachers across the district to continue to include that. So championing writing for students, for E&L students, for all students, is a critical part of not only creating some joy and happiness and having opportunities for them to show creativity and to express themselves, but it's an avenue for them to craft meaningful, productive, fulfilling, and creative lives. Writing is such a critical part of who I am as a person and who I am as a teacher and who I want my students to become, that it comes very naturally. But it doesn't come naturally for everybody. We have to teach people to write. We have to let teachers know that it's more than fill in the blanks, and there's a lot of obligatory writing we do in school. Answer this question, answer this prompt. But if we continue to grow writers throughout our system, we are building people's creativity, We're giving them an opportunity to express themselves. We're opening them up to other creative ideas for their future. And I will tell you, I wanted to read this quote to you. This is a student who, it was her second year in the United States, and we make books all the time. Every class, we make several books. We publish a book. Every class publishes a book, and publishing means other people see it and read it, it's published. It can be digital or it can be paper, but her final essay in her book was titled, she's second year in the United States, studied in the United States only 2 years, learned English from, she's a Spanish first language speaker. She learned English at our school 2 years. And at the end of that 2 years, we published this book. This was hers. And her reference was, I can do it. And she says, my advice to young people is that there will be difficult moments in your life that will cause an impact. These moments will change you. Allow them to make you stronger, more intelligent, more kind, but do not let them turn you into something that you are not. The luck to succeed in life is called believing in yourself. She was one of the best writers in the class. This is a child who, before she entered our school, had never spoken English and she'd never written English. Now she is ready to do a college application in English in the United States, I think somewhere in Tennessee. I'm not sure where she's going to go to school. But we push and push and push writing, and then this comes out of a person who you just don't know the depth. It's so deep and wide. When you see the depth of writing that results from class, when you see the depth of writing that students promote their friends, they congratulate their friends, they work together. It's rewarding as teachers, yes, but it's more rewarding because that's a skill you can never take away from anyone. You are only as strong as the skills that you develop. And writing is a skill that students can develop. And my final thought is that we as educators, as English New Language educators, certainly will focus on reading, writing, speaking, and listening, and then putting all that together. But putting all that together in terms of creative thought and processing, so the writing isn't just responses. It's not just fill in the blank, but that it is an expression of students and that teachers understand across the core content, writing is critically important, and that students will develop those skills if they're given the strategies to succeed. Thank you.
All right, now we'll field any questions that you may have for the presenter. Got a question right up here.
Yeah, you mentioned a middle school curriculum that you used for English as new learners. Could you expand on what that curriculum is?
Yeah, and Beatrice, do you want to help?
I mean, you can.
Okay, so she's our middle school lead person in our district, and so I'll push it over to her, but it is used throughout our district. Thank you.
The program that we use is from National Geographic, and it's called Inside. There are 3 levels to Inside, A, B, and C, and then there is also Inside Fundamentals, which is between that gap of being a newcomer and being on level A. So it's something that we offer in our district for our ENL teachers. We have a curriculum for elementary school, middle school, and high school.
It's grade level text. It's pretty interesting topics, but I've taught it, this is the second year that I've taught it, and students respond to it, but also there are so many tools and resources for assessing students in a formative way. Writing daily is a way to assess formatively, but also the other tools allow you to really see the progression and then to double back and see where you need to support that student.
Were the writing resources built in, or were you supplementing? It sounds to me like you were supplementing writing with what was happening in the curriculum. Can you speak a little bit to the process of taking the curriculum and amplifying it for the writing pieces?
That's a great question. So yes, we took the curriculum, and there are prompts and questions. There's always a compelling question that accompanies the unit. So it's divided into units. This unit, for the B, I teach a couple different versions. So the B, this unit is, what do we do when we come face to face with a rival? That's the big question. And we answer that question throughout the text, but then I always assign an additional writing component. And so what do you do when you come to face with a rival? I generally assign a secondary text that's aligned with grade level, that is related in some way to the topic that we're reading. And then students have a new view. They read the same text multiple times, but then they're presented with a different grade level text, usually a shorter read, ask the question, and then they have to process it with a new text. Sometimes if we have multiple conversations about a text, it sort of becomes rote. They're like, oh yeah, this is what she's gonna want me to say. So we have tools. One of the tools that we use are called Story Dice, and I'll talk about this at some point in the future. I'm gonna do a presentation about the strategies and techniques, but there's a tool called Story Dice. It's not for K through 12, it's for adults to boost their creativity. And it's a free site, big fan of the free. You roll the dice, you open the page, you hit roll the dice, 5 or 9 cubes appear. They have pictures on them, it's illustrated. And there is usually, maybe there's a set of binoculars and a crowd of people, and there's always a toilet. I don't know what that's about. A pair of underwears usually pops up. There's multiple, it's symbols. And so I may, in order to get them started, asking the question, how do I get started? So Story Dice would be a quick write. We'd put it up there and say, okay, what do you do when you come face to face with a rival? Here are 4 symbols. How would you answer that? I need you to write 1 sentence to answer that. I need you to write, these are like different things. 1 sentence sounds like that'd be a good idea. They're like, no, we could never do it. So 1 sentence is hard. I would like you to write a paragraph. You have to write 5 sentences, and each one of those symbols has to appear in that. You have to write a 5-paragraph essay. You have to have an intro, 3 body paragraphs, and a conclusion. This can happen in 1 class period. It happens all the time. Because kids, it gamifies it, it makes it more competitive. And these are things, any question under the rainbow of any subject matter, any teacher can ask a question and ask them to write about it. Sometimes I'll say, cite your evidence. Sometimes I'll say, annotate this text and then write about it in this way. So we use Story Dice to provoke their thinking. We do something called Discussion Diamond, where 4 kids sit at a table. Each one sits in a corner. You ask a question, and then they all have to answer their own. So what do you do when you come face to face with a rival? 4 kids answer on 1 big sheet of paper, and in the middle they have to come to some conclusion together. So there's a talking component to it.
I think collaborative writing can be a really powerful tool for English learners, for sure. The chance to work and revise and rework writing, I think, is really, really powerful.
Editing is critical. Yeah. Writing is drafting and editing. It's the whole spectrum. Absolutely. Thank you.
What other questions do you have for our presenter? Yes, thank you.
I have a question. I know you talked about the importance of having them do some type of writing every day. What does that feedback look like? Because I know that writing feedback does take more time than others. So when you have, for example, middle school social studies in our district, they have 6 class periods. So how are you expecting your teachers, or what are they doing the feedback every day? Like what does that look like?
I love that question. And that is absolutely one of the questions that come from teachers, because that's a lot of work. And you want it to be quality feedback. You want it to have meaning. And we know that quick feedback is a way to promote advancement and change or fix something. In my classroom, and again, my classes are smaller, so complete transparency. When we write, I will do a couple of different things. If it's going to be something that's graded, a lot of times I'll do an assessment grade for a writing piece because it gives me more time to really look at it and assess it and give it weight. So many, many times I don't give a lot of multiple choice tests, I give a writing prompt. And so that's my test grading time. Sometimes it's graded by someone in the class. We read each other's work and it's formative. It's not so super hyper focused on grammar. We're getting ideas out, we're looking at how sentence structure is. Editing is where we might say, take this piece, take a piece you wrote this week. Now really work it so it's capitalization is correct, punctuation is correct, sentence structure is correct. You don't have one sentence. I ask you to write 5 sentences, you've got this much, but it's one sentence. Fix that. So I don't grade everything in the grade book. I review everything they write, but that is absolutely a component of the unfinished picture of how do you make it meaningful. Give them credit for writing it, because that's a big deal. Honor the teacher's time, but still have the benefit. And so I'm very transparent with my kids. They'll say, are you going to grade this? And I'll say, I'm going to read it. We're going to talk about it. This is going to be a presentation. They just did, they had to rewrite a modern fairy tale. So they had to pick a fairy tale, then they had to modernize it in some way. And it was in boxes. Here's the original synopsis. Here's my new fairy tale synopsis. Here's the problem. Here's what I changed. This is the lesson that we learned. And so they made notes and wrote it out and organized it, but then the product was they presented it. So writing doesn't have to be writing its own thing as the finished thing, but normalizing writing as a way to promote learning totally. So a long way to say I don't grade everything, and 100% respect that if depending on the size of your classes, that's a lot to ask of a teacher. But I think as long as we're honest with the students, and they will ask me, are you going to grade this? I'll say, yes, I'm going to grade it, or it's going to fold into the next thing. Keep it, it's going to fold into the next thing. We're going to have an assessment question that is this question, so make sure you're working on it. So I think just being clear. Thank you very much. That's a great question. Thank you.
You mentioned a writing training that you're hosting soon or that you're leading soon. When is that?
That's our upcoming ELL collaborative, right? Would you like to speak to that, Dr. Clark?
I'm going to mention it when I come up there. Yes.
So this one's targeted towards administrators. Yes. That one's targeted towards teachers. So, and that will be more focused on strategies, correct?
And we'll be trying some of the things in the room. So it'll be, these are the strategies, this is what we've tried, this is kids' work product, really digging into what that looks like in the classroom.
Okay, Dr. Clark.
Thank you, Dr. McLean. Thank you, Ms. Donna Neary.
Thank you.
You know, yes. We scheduled this intentionally to provide the administrator's perspective on writing, and then following in November with Ms. Neary to give strategies to classroom teachers. Writing has been requested over the years. We've been doing EL quite often, quite frequently. We've had requests from teachers to help us with writing. And of course, you know, it's in all the assessments in both state assessments and WIDA and ELPA. So writing is ingrained, and we will do it again on November 22nd, the ELL Collaborative for teachers. That session, as we do all of our collaboratives during the school year, will be a hybrid session, which means you can attend here in this room or you can join us online because we will live stream it. We will do that in our November sessions. So, Donna, thank you for being here.
Thank you all.
I appreciate this.